Good morning, everybody. So today we're going to be looking at dialogue. Dialogue is the spoken element of any story. So anything anybody is saying aloud is dialogue, and it needs to be indicated in the text using quotations. So this is sort of a comprehensive list of different methods and techniques to utilize when appropriately using dialogue in your story. So I'm just going to run through these really quick, and then I want you to go back in what you've written so far and make these changes. If you see areas where dialogue isn't used appropriately or properly, go back and make these structural changes. And then I will be looking at this in the first pass that I take on your writing when you turn it into me on Saturday. So quotation marks, they indicate spoken words. Anything said aloud is dialogue, and it should be indicated by quotation marks. So if somebody in your story says, "Let's go to the beach," you put that in quotation marks, period, inside the quotation, because it's quoting the entire sentence that they say. Now, dialogue tags are used, if necessary, to indicate who is saying what. So there was blood everywhere, Karen explained. So that's the thing, is that this woman named Karen is explaining to us something, and this is what she explained. A dialogue tag can be used either at the beginning or the end of a line of dialogue. And you can use any kind of verb, right? So Karen explained, to explain. You could say Karen snorted, Karen stuttered, Karen wept, Karen cried. Anything that describes what that person is doing while the words are coming out of their mouth and how that's affecting what they're saying, right? Like explaining something is very matter of fact. Crying, might be like, shouting is a different way to say those words. You're actually hearing it when you're reading it from the dialogue tag. Using a separate sentence for actions that happen before or after. So a separate sentence just means separated by a period. So you can say, Daniel gasped. He goes, "Oh, you're dying?" And so that's what he does. He does the thing, and then he says the words. So he's not actually doing that while he's saying it. He's not going, "You're dying," right? It's one of those things where he does an action and then the words come. If you're doing something with the dialogue, you can use this sentence: Sam started to cry, which means we know now that Sam is crying. And then using something that somebody said as a secondary quotation. Like if you're quoting somebody when you're saying that aloud, you use single quotes inside the double quotes. So double quotation is what the character is saying. The single quotation is the quote that they're using from someone else. So when you said, "I never want to see you again," it hurt my feelings. And so you use those single quotations to call out that that's something that someone else had said. New paragraphs indicate new speaker. So here's Mark. He's saying, "Danny, I'm going to need you to take a look at this." I said, "Captain Mark," and he gestures to the thing that says, "My God," muttered Captain Mark. His eyes darted from photograph to photograph. He knew it was going to be it. So if you change speakers, and actually this is not right. So it should be, dun, dun, dun. I guess we're thinking about this in two different ways. One, if you change speakers, you have a new paragraph. So like right here, the paragraph ends and then it goes down to this next paragraph. A paragraph is just hitting return once, right? You do that when you change speakers or after an action happens after a line of dialogue. So Captain Mark says this, and then he gestured to the photograph on his desk. And then he does another thing, right? So then he says, "My God," his eyes started to the photograph. Isn't that the after cup? He knew it was going to be a long night. So Captain Mark is the speaker twice here, but because he gestured to the photograph on his desk, then we start a new line. If, let's say, this was Danny, it's still a new paragraph. So either way, from an action that separates two different sort of moves by a character, right? Like saying a thing and gesturing, and then new line, saying a thing, looking at the photo, thinking. So again, like the minutia of how to properly format dialogue is, it's pretty complex. And this is one thing that you'll look out for. But I will help you with this during our first edit, every edit. Start with a lowercase letter if action interrupts dialogue. Here we go. The interruption of dialogue. Let's see, it's one line, one person, action in between two halves of dialogue. So this person is saying at the end of the day, there's always more soup. But what we're going to find out here in the middle is that he's bellowing, right? He's speaking very loudly. At the end of the day, he bellowed, there's always more soup. So there you go. So lowercase letter if action interrupts dialogue. So you don't say he said uppercase, you say he said lowercase. Long speeches have their own rules. That means you can essentially, I guess we'll just read this. If a person speaks long enough for any period of time, so as to necessitate a new paragraph, the dialogue formatting rules are slightly different than normal. The opening quotation marks are placed at the first part of the first paragraph, as well as each subsequent paragraph. So you see here, Jasper takes a deep breath and he says this. He blah 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 blah, no end quotation, and then beginning of the next paragraph, and then finally at the end. So we're denoting here that he's still speaking, even though it's a new paragraph. And then when he's finally done, we put it at the end. And then these are, em dashes and ellipses. That's pretty advanced stuff, but the rules are here as well. So what I want you to do today is go through what you've written already, and if there is dialogue, check it for these rules, right? Especially the first 5, because those are the most important. And then beyond that, I'll be helping to revise and edit your work as we go along. When you turn it to me on Saturday, I'll get a first look at what you've done, and we can make sure that we're using all the formatting rules properly. All right. Have a great Thursday. I'll talk to everybody soon.